Hello everybody, my name is Paul. I'm a country realtor in the western part of Virginia near Waynesboro. And I make a lot of videos about homesteading because I'm a big fan of that lifestyle in rural areas of the country. And as a realtor, I encounter a lot of people who are looking for rural property, and Virginia is a great place for it. You see some of my other videos about the highlights of Virginia and what it offers for people who want to live a rural life. And today I'm going to talk a little bit more about the economics of homesteading. I don't have a huge big spread here with lots of cows and everything, but I'm very familiar with country living, and again, I talk a little bit more of a different aspect of it is the economics of it and managing it and so on. Because a lot of young people, I have children in the 30s and 40s, and they're out there trying to buy a house and live in the country and so on, but a lot of young people, especially, are first-time home buyers. They're not familiar with what might occur when they own a piece of property and they want to run it, especially if they want to have a little more homesteading. I define a homestead as being basically self-reliant to some degree. We can't totally live off the land these days. It's very difficult, but it's just a matter of running your household efficiently, because there's operations, there's systems in your house, there's electrical and plumbing and all this stuff. And I'm going to get into some of that, because some of the things that we need are just knowledge. You need to know how things work. If you have a septic tank on your property, for example, or you have a solar system, you need to know a little bit about how it works. So learn electrical knowledge, the basics. You don't have to become an electrician or so on, but if you understand how things operate, you can solve a lot of the problems that happen on your own with a little bit of knowledge and some basic tools. And that's the whole point of being economically self-sufficient, because what we want to do is we want to reduce our dependence on the rest of the system. That you see, for example, in a city, a lot of people don't even know, they've never lived in the country, but out here in the country we have our own water on our own property, and we typically have our own septic system, you see. So we don't have to depend on the city's water or what they put into it and so on. And we can filter it ourselves. We can even collect rainwater, and many people do. They use it for irrigation and so on. So there's a lot of systems in your household that you need to understand, like how they're basically built, and there's water management issues because if you have rain and you don't have the right gutters, and there's all kinds of things that you need to know, basically. And I encourage people to watch other videos and online and many other experts out there talking about how to operate various systems and the tools that you need. Now, I tell people that if they are buying more than a few acres, you're going to need a tractor. Okay, if you want to maintain it, okay? If you want to just leave it the woods, fine. But if you want to have any kind of operation going on more than a few acres, it's really, really helpful to have some machinery to help do a lot of the things. Now, I have about 3.5 acres here, and it's well organized, and it's mostly flat. There's a slight grade to it, but it's very slight, and it's very amenable to the sun and so on. But the thing is that there's water issues because the ground is on the slope of a hill. There's a pause, the hills of the Shenandoah Mountains, the Blue Ridge Mountains. There's a slope that comes down, and even though the water is quite deep, it's not right on the surface, but there are issues in some areas where the water is coming down. It finds channels underneath the ground, and it can affect a person's basement and so on. So what I'm going to encourage people, I'm going to make a list. I try to keep it a little bit organized here. And the definition I talk about the homestead is operational, smooth, it's efficient, it's growing. The success is not measured in cash. You can have a $1 million operation and you're losing 10 grand a month or a week. So it's all, self-sustaining is economically. A lot of it is economics from the very beginning. Wherever people settled in this world, they had to make use of the resources, and I have this saying. I say, if you don't think money grows on trees, you never saw an orchard, because you can make money on your property. That's another thing I want to get into. But basically, health savings, you can be much more healthy and satisfied and more fulfilled. Your family, there's economic benefits of not having to take your kid or dog to a park, because you just have the park on your own property and let them play there and so on. So there's a lot of different aspects of homesteading which I cover, and again, I specialize in land and real property as a realtor, and I see a lot of the needs, and I want to go through some of them here. You need to know how structures are built, the gutters, the soffits, the eaves, vents, and so on. You need to know a little bit about land management in terms of the value of the type of deed that you have and the rights that you might have. You might have an easement by a utility company through your property, or a pipeline, or a wire coming through, or you might even have someone who has the rights to something, when you purchase land. So you have to be careful, especially in the larger parcels. But you need to know a little about the climate in your area. What are the highs and lows, and when does the first frost come, and so on, because that'll mean a strategy. Again, planning is a very important part of running a homestead. Have a plan. So you got a bunch of systems here. For example, I have about 3.5 acres, and I have a workshop there, and I can do more fine type of work and electrical work and so on. Then I have another area where I do woodworking with the sawdust and cutting, and that's in a big pole barn with an open area. All the dust can go down, no problem. And then I have an area that there's a wood furnace, and there's a wood shed there as well, and there's a building associated with that for heating up pork meat and storing things and so on. Then there's a little office building. So there's a lot of operations going on here, and I have to, I suggest people make a little diary. I have a logbook, basically. I don't enter every single day, but highlights of things, and I catch up every few days, and okay, I did this and that, and sometimes it's very helpful. So when did I last mow, for example, or when did we put in that new septic tanker, or when was that last drain done, and so on. And it's good to have records, and I'll get into that a little bit later. I personally have a whole operation thing of my own property here with the original listing and different things I'm going to do, and the way the land is, and the geometry of it, and so on, and where the buildings are. So it's good, really important to keep records here, and that's one of the things I think you should do, is keep records of major improvements, because, for example, when I bought this property here, there's a big, huge wood furnace there, and they didn't come up with me and say, hey, okay, at the closing, we're going to give you this manual for operating this big, huge furnace. So I went online and said, well, that's a pretty expensive furnace. It's all set up and nicely and connected to the house, so darn, it's a pretty good thing, but I don't know how to operate it. So I get myself a manual and go online and find out, hey, now I got to take maximum advantage of the things that you have. Buildings, I suggest people in other videos, if you're going to homestead, you're going to need more than one structure. You're going to need a home, but when people move from the countryside into the cities, they may say you could have a house, but then you have a garage and maybe you have a little shed in the back. You probably see a lot of these country properties or suburban properties. They have a little tin shed or wood shed back there, and inside there they stuff all the mower and everything, all the recreation gear. They try to squeeze it in that little shed. And that's what it's come down to. But when you move out the country, you got typically a lot more space, so they have a big shed. Okay, there's a number of buildings on this property here, 7 or 8, I think, and some of them are small and some of them are very big. So it's just a matter of getting a system. There's categories of stuff. A lot of people don't realize in other areas of the world, they don't cook inside their house. Cooking's a mess, and there's all kinds of pots and pans and grease and everything and smoke and everything. They actually have a separate building, maybe 5 or 6 steps away from the house, and that's where they do all their kitchen stuff, you see. And they don't have to bring it into the household with all the rats and so on, you see. So there's a strategy and thinking about what are you going to do in your homestead and what kind of equipment and knowledge you need to operate it successfully. You might need to know about soil. Now, I'm 70 years old. I'm not a farmer, but I can learn enough about soil. Say, okay, well, I know how to do some composting. I know how to recognize what a good rich soil is. I know what clay is. I can do some things to my soil, and I can upgrade it, and I can buy potting plant material, and then I can not have to major in soil science, but I can certainly have a really nice garden if I just learn some things. You see, there's a whole lot to learn. Again, I'm a realtor and I see this all the time. People, they might have plenty of money, but they don't know how to fix their mower, you see? And it may be a simple problem. I was a mechanic for a while. I worked for Xerox for a long time, and they told you 80% of the problems are caused by 20% of the things, you know, and most of them are simple. I'd go to calls for Xerox and there's tiny little paper jam. Well, it was caused by one tiny little thing. It was a very common, and maybe someone didn't clear out the paper from last jam. And you see, so if you learn how to operate, you'll find out, okay, where are the most likely problems in a house, okay? In my case, there's a half basement because of the water level. Sometimes it gets there's a pump down there and everything, and it never accumulates, but it gets a little damp on the floor. It doesn't get up to your knees or up to your ankles or anything, but it's just something to be aware of. So I ventilate the place, and I run a dehumidifier down there, and I realized when I bought the house that, well, there's a simple thing. There's a gutter missing right above where the basement window is, and every time it rains, it just splatters down right there, right next to the basement window. And I just solved that. I put a rain collector there and I put a gutter there, and next thing you know, well, the water's going off that way, and I've saved myself a lot of that possible problem. See, so if you know how things operate, and then you can address some of these things, you get some basic tools. And I'm going to get into tools here for a while. You really need, if you're going to run a homestead, like I said, get some machinery. If you don't have money to get a tractor, the way I do it, I get a 18, 20 horsepower, maybe a twin engine, heavy duty mower. You buy them used. I had John Deere's. I bought a crappy old John Deere. It's a beast, and then mowed 3.5 years. I mowed this like steep 1.5 acre area, and it took a hell of a beating, but I managed, and it was cheap because I knew how to maintain and fix it. You see. And I still have it. Now I got another one for this property, and now I know what to do with it. I already had to change a drive belt, and I had a linkage area fixed and everything. So I fixed a bent blade. So things like that, I never need to call anybody, pay them $50 an hour to do something for me. I learn it myself. You see, again, getting back to economics. Okay. Let's say someone makes $100,000 a year. What a great job! We got $100,000 a year. Okay, well now you're in the city. You're paying city taxes. You're paying all this everything, and your homeowner association, and this and that. Another thing. My next thing you know, after the taxes, city, county income, and so on, you're only making 70, and then you got another 10, 15 grand of just maintenance on your property. So now you're really only taking home 55. Well, if you can earn 50 in the countryside and have a much better lifestyle and save that extra $34,000 by things that you know. Again, I have saved countless thousands of dollars in my life just knowing how to fix things. I took electronics courses when I was young. I also know mechanical things. I'm good with tools. I've always bought tools. I buy them cheap, used, and I use them for years and years. And I just saved tons and tons of money. I built my own furniture, fixed my own machines, and so on. So, again, back to operation, the economy, the old-style farmers back in the days. This house I was in 1946. Imagine, no computers, you had to walk a mile to a neighbor or something like that. I mean, they're talking about a very, very different kind of a lifestyle, but they were self-sufficient, and they had to be. They had to know what happened. I bought this house because I like it. It's simple. It doesn't have all the complications of the modern houses that they build, and I've seen a lot of them, believe me. And then they also did some updating in the electrical and some of the plumbing, and they did some upgrading in the interior and so on. So it's a nice combination of some upgraded and durable features from a long time ago. If a house is still operating after 80 years, I think it's the original tin roof. It's an 80-year-old house. You see? So it makes a difference in what you know when you buy your property. How is it going to be to operate that property? How is it going to be to cover the costs? I mean, if you have to get a part for your tractor, can you fix it yourself? Can you take a spark plug out or not? And by the way, getting back to some machines and tractors here, compressors, air compressors, battery chargers, all kinds of hand tools, socket wrenches, saws, drills, things that you can use to put up hardware and shelves, things you want, materials. I get hardware at the flea market. I buy a big bucket of something. You got screws and nails for a long, long time. I'm still using things I bought years ago because I just bought this hardware in a big container, and I've just been using it for years. So things like that. But getting back to a tractor, you can buy a used tractor. I had a 1959 Ford tractor, 48 horsepower, wheels up to my shoulder, and man, that was a beast. Had a bucket on it, but it was cheap. I mean, you can't even go to Walmart and get a mower for that price these days. And then not only that, but I kept it for 3 or 4 years, and then I sold it. I didn't make money on it, but I got some of my money back for after having it for 3 years and using it for all that stuff I did. I had a big bucket on it. So look out for used machinery. Country folk love to make deals. There's auctions that you can go to. There's Craigslist. There's people just saying, hey man, I got an old mower sitting in my, people know how to fix one. I came here, I found a guy right down the road, 2 miles down the road. He had selling this lawnmower for $450. I said, okay, I know how they work. I've had one similar. I know how to maintain them. I'll take it. He changed the oil, did all the maintenance on it for me. I brought it home. He delivered it. I replaced a belt on it, and that's going to last for years. So if I figure I paid $500 for this machine, but it's going to last me 5 years at least. So I suggest you get a little tractor, a little trailer behind the garden tractor, and I suggest one of the things you might consider is a flatbed trailer because you can move machinery and furniture and things around. You can save yourself a U-Haul bill if you have a little flatbed trailer on your property. You say, hey man, I got to go pick up that couch or whatever. Off you go with your little thing, your trailer. And regarding vehicles, I have a Toyota Tacoma 4 doors, my second one, and I really suggest a sport utility, or I really suggest a pickup truck because you can do so much with a pickup truck these days. You can carry all kinds of stuff, and the kind that I have is a 4-door, and it's very comfortable. It feels like a car inside, and if I want to carry some family members or friends or clients, I can put the seats up. And but normally I just use it for carriage space to keep my tools, my drone in there. So back to skills a little bit. I want to wrap this up here. Skills that you need to communicate on the internet, using technology that we have, and using Photoshop, or I have a drone, cameras, all that you can do to promote and document your life there in your homestead, and keeping records. Like I said, I have a nice little book here, I have a nice printer. I printed a color diagrams of where I want to plant things and things like that. You can make a diagram, you can hold strategy, you can, there's a saying in aviation, plan the flight and fly the plan. So another saying in aviation is, if it's important, have a duplicate, and a short pencil is built better than a long memory. So I'm a big fan of aviation, by the way. I have an aviation private pilot license and a drone pilot license, but I want to wrap this up here, and again, back to the success. What's a successful homestead? It's operationally smooth. You get repairs, you get maintenance, you got things to do, things come up, you got to fix a fence or something, but overall, you have an operationally smooth and you're not down on anything, Then you basically have the family and health benefits. If you're going to have that, don't make it stressed out. Some people buy a property and overdo it. It's like way more than they can maintain, and then they find themselves overwhelmed. So don't bite off more than you can chew, but at the same time, every single day from the day that you buy a property, start maintaining it, start making it better, start improving it, start customizing it to your use so you can maximize the benefits. For example, on my property, I found some soil. There's some hickory nut trees. There's a lot of oak trees and maple, and there's good soil in many areas. There's loads and loads of sunshine, and there's lots of real roofs to put the solar on if I need that. And there's lots of garden space, and fencing is important. Another thing, don't ever buy animals until you buy the fence first. I heard that from a farmer. If you're going to have animals, make sure you have a fence, because even ducks will wander off. I mean, ducks are a little different, and chickens, but generally speaking, you want some kind of container for any kind of animals. So I hope people enjoy these videos. Please like and share. Come back and visit. I keep updating. I'm a specialist in rural property. Call me. I work for Reliance Team Realty in Manita. I live in Stuart Strath, Virginia. And I have a little contact video on here that shows a little information, my phone number. So please like and share, and I love the feedback. I watch lots of other content, and I just try to have a little specialty here and a little more of the economics and the real estate angle of having a homestead. So, see you in another video.